Mark Pellegrino is here. His list of credits are endless, and they include Mulholland Drive, Supernatural.
No wonder you forfeited this planet to us.
Capote.
Suddenly these eyes will be staring at you.
The X-Files. And The Big Lebowski.
Here's the fucking money, shithead!
It's down there somewhere. Let me take another look.
Mark Ross Pellegrino.
Yeah.
Great to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
Good to
Great
see
to be
you.
here. Yeah, man.
And you were born in the San Fernando Valley?
I was born in Pasadena.
Okay.
Yeah. Raised primarily in Van Nuys.
Right.
Yeah, moved there in 1970.
Okay.
So I'm dating myself, but I was born in 65.
Right. So that was a house off of Fulton and Victory?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you went to Notre Dame High School?
I did.
All 4 years?
All 4. Wait, did you go to Notre Dame?
I went for 2 years.
You got kicked out?
Well, my brother was a big star and a big scholar, and he went to play football at Dartmouth. He was an Ivy League boy. And when he graduated, they called me in the office, and they said, well, when your brother was here, we didn't want to embarrass him, but now that he's gone, we'd like you to go too.
Wait, what class was he?
I don't believe I talk about that on social media.
I was 83. Well, I just had my 40th reunion.
Did you go?
I did.
Oh, where was
there
that?
Were like 7 of us there.
Oh.
And that's not that everybody's died. It's just that we're the only ones who could make it because it was at Notre Dame.
Oh, was that Notre Dame?
Yeah, it was.
Our 40th was at the Sportsman's Lodge, and we went to the football game the night before.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of people there, and they all said they weren't going. It was so disappointing. I go, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. No, I'm not going. Well, you're here. People came in from out of town. Wow. There was 2 guys I knew played football with at Notre Dame, who were about 6 rows behind us in the stands and never said hi. And the next day I was like, where's so-and-so? Oh, they were in the stands behind you last night. So it was just, because the 20 year for me was one of the greatest nights of my life. Yeah. Everybody was grown up. There was none of the
cliques that were normally there.
Right.
Yeah, that were even sort of there in the 10 year.
Yeah, people who didn't like you for whatever reason, or you didn't like, if I had a resentment, which I'm easy to do, they were all gone. We're all adults, and everybody was nice to each other, know, and then the 40th, nobody went. I'll tell you one thing. One of the brothers came in and he said, okay, now we're going to pray. And I was like, whoa. We ain't at school. We're at the Sportsman's Lodge. I don't want to say I'm anti-religion because, I'm very, well, we've talked about it many times over the years. But it's like, I'm like, dude, we're having a reunion. We're not going to get down on one knee and
They did a little prayer at ours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's no brothers there at Notre Dame anymore.
There's not?
Nope. Now the brothers' residence, I think, are administration buildings.
Really?
Yeah. And it's been added to quite a bit.
I've seen that. They had an open house like last Sunday. I kind of wanted to go. Yeah, the weight room. So the weight room, when you and I were there, was like...
About the size of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's an enormous... Yeah. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen the weight room, but they took me a tour on the Film and Television Academy.
What?
They actually have a Film and Television Academy.
Well, Jerry Lewis repaved the tennis courts and the basketball when I was there. Yeah, Chris was in my class. Chris Lewis. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
I'll just have to go through the yearbooks to find your class.
Yeah. No. That's me at Hollywood High junior year.
Wow.
There is no senior year picture.
Damn. Okay, I get it.
So, where'd you go to grammar school? Did you go to Catholic school?
I went to Kittredge Street. No,
Kittredge
Street. And then I went to Madison Junior High School, Valley Schools in Van Nuys. And then because of the busing situation, because of the crazy racialized circumstances, basically for people who don't know what was going on back then in the 70s, the kids were basically a social experiment for the government, and who was trying to integrate schools, and so they were busing in kids from East Los Angeles and Compton and South LA, South Central, and bringing them into the Valley, and sometimes busing kids out from the Valley into those schools to force integration. And of course, that was my first confrontation with racism, was when those kids came in. The gangbangers from South Central and Compton and East LA came in and sort of took over the school in a way and became bullies. One of my buddies joined a gang called C14, which was big at the time. Yeah, huh?
Clanton.
C14? Is that what they were? I thought it was like Coldwater 14. That's what I thought.
When I was young, I told a story on here about how Clanton, they would come up to me, and I was like 13. They send a girl up, and she walks up to you, doesn't say anything. Then she turns around to the gangbangers and says, he doesn't like Mexicans.
Oh, come on. And they jump you?
Yeah, then they're like, what? And then if you say, I didn't say that, they say, you calling her a liar?
Wow.
Right? Yeah. And they knocked me around a little bit. I never got any broken bones. They just like to knock you around, slap you around.
Well, I never experienced any violence from any of the gang members. And that guy that was my friend who joined C14, I mean, he went down the tubes, but he was my buddy and could protect me from any of that stuff. But my mom didn't like that scenario, so she decided that I should go to a private school, and that's when I went to Notre Dame. Yeah. And that was a huge sacrifice for her because, you know, she was basically on a single income at the time. She had divorced my stepfather, didn't have anybody else, and so the $800 a year that it cost at the time, which is nothing in comparison to what it is today, was a real sacrifice for her. So I made the deal with her that I would get a job and pay for my books because the books were an extra $200 some odd a year. So I would work every summer and pay off my books, and then I worked through the school year too, but mostly on the weekends. But started working at 15. Yeah.
Now, did you play any sports at Notre Dame?
No. Too small.
Really?
Yeah, I played Pop Warner football for 6 years.
All right.
And then when I went to ninth grade, I was still like 5'3". The guy that I used to kick ass on the Mid-Valley Rams became the all-CIF linebacker at Notre Dame, Carl Rendazzo. He was a freaking monster.
Right.
By ninth grade, he was a monster.
Right. Wow.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't make the transition.
We had that guy, Gordy Saraceno. It was, I can't say that. You'll know how old I am. Scott,
I'll find that now.
But
Gordy Saraceno.
He ended up going to Stanford, and I think he played a season or two with the 49ers.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was, some of these guys came in like that big.
They were gnarly.
Yeah.
They were gnarly back then. I don't know the divisions of the high school teams. It's like, is it like a C1,
C2,
C2,
1A, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A.
I mean, I think they're like 3A now or something, right? I mean, they're undefeated in that division, but it's a lame division.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, a lot of big rivalries.
Crespi Critters.
Crespi Critters. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
St. Francis. We had some street fights up there, and Loyola.
Yeah, I remember seeing a fight at Loyola. I would go to all the games. I was a total freak. I embodied that crazy cheerleader, freaky patriot for my school.
Yeah, but that was part of the culture there. I mean, it really was a sports school, so everybody went. You know what I mean?
It was, but for me, it was more like I'd found a family that I'd always been looking for. I didn't have a family. I have a weird family situation. We could get into that, too.
Right.
Because I just found my biological father the last 2 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I have a crazy family situation. And so being at Notre Dame, which was established in 1947, and seeing all the students there, that most of those kids came up from, grammar school through middle school in Catholic schools with each other. There was a sort of a fraternity there, and there was a closeness there. And our class probably had 100 kids in it, right?
Right.
So I felt, even if I didn't like some of the kids in the class, we were all sort of close to each other. And I felt a sense of family and camaraderie there, and an obligation, because my mom was paying for the education, to do well. So I threw myself into the not the social life so much, because I was sort of a nerd, but definitely the sports angle, the basketball and football. I got to be a nerd and sort of a socialite at the same time, paint my face blue and gold, go in there and scream my head off and have fun. And I knew all the cheers. I knew the Notre Dame fight song.
NDHS, fight, fight, fight.
That's it. That's the end.
Yeah, I know.
Cheer, cheer for old Notre Dame. Wake up the echoes cheering her name. Send a volley cheer on high. Shake down the thunder from the sky. What though the odds be great or small, old Notre Dame will win overall, while her loyal sons go marching onward to victory. NDHS, fight, fight, fight. I can't believe I remember that song. It's like the only song I remember.
So my story was that I got kicked out in the 10th grade, and my parents had been big boosters there, and my mom wanted me to go back. So after I was at Hollywood High for a while, they wanted me to go back, and I was all messed up on drugs and things, and I wasn't going to fight them, and I went back, and it was not good. We had a crew of people we drank and smoked before school, and I ended up not getting it. Was Don Brown the dean of men when you were there?
No.
Don Brown?
No.
Had a deep voice. Like,
Dean
all
Stocks.
right, Tiger. Dean.
It was Stocks.
Okay.
Mr. Stocks was the dean.
So
It was frightening. I have a story to tell about him, by the way.
Well, they let me back in, so I was in with people's younger brothers and sisters. It was just shameful, just embarrassing, and my mother thought it was a good idea. I didn't last, 4 or 5 months the second time, and the dean of men wanted to fight me in the locker room. Because he gave me a chance, and I just couldn't do it. I was hooked on barbiturates at 16. I couldn't.
Damn.
I couldn't live the anyway. So I was there. I got kicked out twice.
Wow.
So.
Okay, so somewhere in there, Mr. Stocks became the dean of men. He was an ex-police officer, barrel-chested dude, scary guy, and I think they still had corporal punishment at the time.
Okay.
My only experience with Mr. Stocks, thank God, because I was a good student, was a finals. It was finals, I think, during geometry class. And, the doors were set up. They'd have these little windows in the doors.
Yeah.
And teachers or the dean of men could come by, look into the windows,
right,
especially in the back door, and see the entire class and see what was going on in the whole class. And Mr. Stocks, unbeknownst to us, used to prowl through the hallways, looking into those windows to see if he could catch anybody doing anything bad. Sure enough, he caught somebody cheating on the geometry final test. The only experience I have of that moment is the back door flying open and the entire desk and the kid getting sucked out the back door like a horror movie, and the door shut and the kid screaming. We hear the desk being dragged down the hallway like by a monster, and we knew his days were numbered at Notre Dame.
Yeah, all boys school.
All boys.
So you could fart in class and everybody would laugh.
Oh, we did bad things.
Yeah.
We did bad things. In fact, my first year religion class, we had this guy, Mr. Benson.
Okay.
Who had, a beard like ZZ Top, long hair, often came into class barefoot.
Really?
Often stoned, very unkempt, but could play the guitar and sing. I think there's a punchline to this story, but we just went wild in that class. He eventually got fired, of course, because he was completely out of control. We didn't learn anything about the Bible or religion for the first 8 months of school. But this guy would sing at Mass, and I'd think to myself, damn, he's good. He's like a professional. Sure enough, he ended up suing Van Halen for a song that they apparently stole from him. Don't know what the song is, but won millions. Millions. And unfortunately, the substitute teachers who would come in and do our religion class got nailed. Do you remember those things you could throw, those little wadded things you could throw and they'd explode on contact?
Yeah.
Yeah. Many a substitute teacher ended the day with multiple wads of exploded ordnance in their hair from us. And then the next year we got Mr. Hill. Was Mr. Hill doing? Yes, Mr. Hill was doing religion for you.
Oh my God, was he boring?
Oh, we got him though.
Larry
Nobody
Hill
fucked around in his class.
I remember. I sat in the back by the door and I left as often as possible. So
yeah, never trust a man with a perfectly coiffed mustache.
Yeah. Larry Hill, was that his name? I forget.
I don't remember. He's passed now.
Yeah, Mr. Hill. Yeah. So
Mr. Dukakis, do you remember him?
Sure.
Oh, he was my English teacher. Yeah. John Caesar was.
Hi, how are you, Mark? Hi, John Caesar here.
Yeah.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
Yep, that's him. Yeah. Who else?
Now, did you join theater with John Caesar? No.
No.
Okay.
I had no interest in that. I was like a science kid. I was huge into history. I got the Bank of America award for the best American history student on the West Coast.
Really?
Yep. And so I was like huge into American history and huge into science, and I was going to be a marine biologist. That was going to be my thing. So acting was nowhere on my radar.
Have you ever played a marine biologist?
Never have.
Jeff Goldblum and Robin Cohen were in The Life Aquatic.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's
They
too
did,
bad you
yes.
didn't join them. And
I should have. No, I think what killed my aspirations for marine biology in the end was Jaws.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Because I was terrified of sharks.
We all went to see it. We went to the beach every friggin' day of the summer for 10 years, and we went to see Jaws, and we were body surfing the next day.
Nah, you're crazy.
Nah, I just didn't.
To this day, even though we know so much more about great white sharks, there's people who free dive with great white sharks now. Mm-hmm. I've been invited to do a great white shark dive with people, and I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd do the dive. Yeah. I don't know if I'd go in the lunchbox, get on top of the cage, and hang out with the sharks. But I'd definitely get in a cage and do that thing with the great whites. I still don't like, the idea of being out there in dark water with something underneath me
Well,
thinking I'm food.
I'm very freaked out if I fell off a boat in the deep ocean. I'm very freaked out about everything that's down below. I'm also freaked out about being around big ships, like being down below.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, no, I mean, so we body surf.
Those screws can suck you right into the engine and grind you up.
Yeah. Yeah. Not afraid of still to this day, body surfing, being out there. But, no, I don't want to go... 20, 30 feet's okay, but to think about getting dropped off and just with all that vast space below you with whatever's down there, no, that's freaky. You see these things when these whales come by and these people are on these, tourist boats and a whale comes by, that freaks the fuck out of me to think that you're in something 15 feet, 20 feet long and this thing... 150 feet long, and they're friendly. They always show them coming up and having fun, kind of splashing at you.
I mean, something that weighs 15 tons, you should be a little suspect of what its intentions are.
I'm not. I mean, I see them having, and I say, hey, that's pretty cool on the on Instagram. I'm not looking to go.
I don't need to go there.
Yeah,
I'm the same way, even with the humpback whale. Tracy, my wife, before we were married, we went to Maui, and she would take a paddleboard about 3 or 4 miles off the coast.
Get the fuck
by
out
herself.
of here.
Nope.
She's tiny.
She's tiny, and she's able to do that, I guess. But she would go out there with the other boats that were watching the humpback whales. Oh. And the humpback whales would breach almost in front of her. And she's on a paddleboard, standing on a paddleboard.
Right. Not me.
No, that's not for me either.
Tracy, you're all right.
She's all right. Yeah. She's braver than me.
Well, I was just looking up. You got on a LA Law in 1987, so you were young. So I know you're in a workshop, at a commercial workshop, and you got discovered by an agent. You told me standing on the steps at Studio One once. You told me the story.
Yeah. So what happened was I was at a commercial workshop that I didn't pay for. Thank God. And I say that because, well, clearly I got value out of it. I mean, I got an agent out of it. But I had no idea when I was doing something right and when I was doing something wrong.
Right.
And crazily enough, this is going to relate to our Meisner stuff, the actor, Bob Hover, who's since passed away, he was a soap opera actor and a commercial actor. Some of the things he would have as practice were spoon rivers. So whenever I did a good spoon river, I wasn't sure why I did a good spoon river, why I did a bad one. Regardless of my rudderlessness, he thought I had something and set me up with this agent, sort of a scummy dude. He's like, I'm telling you he's gay and he might come on to you, which he did, which was a whole other story. But that guy, thought I had some possibility too, but I wasn't closing the deal on the couple auditions that I went on. He thought I needed, some craft. So he gave me a list of acting schools. And I basically asked him out of the list of 15 or 20 schools, which one was the cheapest and the closest. That was my standard at the time. Remember, I'm coming from marine biology. I didn't really know if I was going to, stick with this acting thing or not. He pointed out the cheapest and the closest happened to be Playhouse West. And I went there, and that's when I started to confront the idea of acting as a craft and watching the eclectic group of folks that were in there in 1987. That's when I joined up. Was really stunning. I would see stuff on stage that I'd never seen before. Like I said, this was a completely new medium for me.
Was Tony Montez there at the time?
Tony Montez, Sam Whipple, Christy Lemon.
Oh yeah,
yeah. The John Shearnan or whatever. The whole group of folks that were on the sign that you posted. The folks who built the school. Adam Small, yeah, he was doing the Dinky Dow trilogy. I don't know if you saw that when you were there. Yeah, they were all there, but they were sort of inching their way out. We were the next generation coming in.
Right.
And I still, I think the first job I got before I knew anything about acting, and that was Fatal Beauty. And you could tell I don't know anything about acting by the way I die in that movie, because it's as bad as Sofia Coppola and Godfather 3, if not worse.
No,
it's worse. I say
Daddy.
Yes, I did that, except I said Denny 3 times. My boss's name 3 times. Really bad. And I remember thinking, I don't know how to die on camera. I don't know how to do this. But, my favorite shows on TV were Bonanza and The Big Valley, and people die on that all the time. Let me just die like those guys.
Right.
I died worse, let's just say. And then, I started getting work like LA Law, No Holds Barred, stuff like that. But transmitting what I was learning in at Playhouse West to actual working environment was like trying to turn the night into day without the sunshine. It was really tough.
But it was easy when Jimmy Smits beat you up, right?
Yeah, actually it was.
Right.
Because in LA Law, I play this punk in a bathroom who's screwing with a little person, and we have him up on a hook in the bathroom stall, and he's hanging there and he's kicking around, flailing around. We're laughing at him. Jimmy Smits comes in, and I actually had a thought the second he came in. I'm like, holy fuck, he's really mad. Because then he's like, what are you? And he takes me and he smashes me into this mirror and he beats the crap out of us, and we end up running out of there.
You don't have time to think about technique.
I didn't have time to think about technique. I was probably bad still, but I didn't have time to think about, what I had to do. I just had to look at him, and he made me very, very scared. And I ended up working with him, a couple more times on
NYPD Blue.
NYPD Blue, yeah.
Yeah.
And by then I had more craft, and it was fun. I worked on that show like 3 or 4 times. And
It was
fun working on there, yeah, with those guys.
But who's, counting? Yeah. You've been watching Brian Lally, Hollywood Native. Now I want to talk to you about something I'm really passionate about, and that's teaching acting. So I co-founded Lola's Acting School with my son, Kyle Lally, Lally Acting School. I've been acting for a long time now. I have 100 plus credits on IMDb, hundreds of plays I've been involved with over the years, and I just want to share that experience with you.
What we do differently here at Lolas is we give you practical advice that you can use on a movie set, on a play, an audition, anywhere. We give you the foundation to build yourself as a great actor.
If you come to us, you don't know anything, we can teach you everything you need to know to be comfortable on a set and to excel. Don't just listen to me. Look at what our students are doing. Daryl Wesley, who is writing on 2 hit shows, The Game and The Upshaws, and Ben Barrett, who's a series regular on The Politician. Megan Davis, who is playing Amber Heard in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard story. Come check us out.
You see Brian here? He's not always doing the best. Financially, mentally, physically, for sure. You want to help keep Brian off the streets of Hollywood? There's a way you can help. Join us on Patreon. You want to tell them what we got on there, buddy?
Yes, we have the general admission, we have the backstage, and we have the VIP all-access pass. So please join today. I'm due for a bath.
In the arms of the angel,
No, but you said, we're going to jump ahead just a second. We're going to go back. But, you talked about Dennis Franz. I believe you called him Denny, and how that dude brought it every show. I mean, that dude retired without saying it. I binged that probably 4 years ago, the whole series. That dude brought it for 247, 200 episodes every show.
And in Hill Street Blues before that.
Right.
That's where I first encountered his character. I would leave my martial arts class early every Thursday night just to get home in time for Hill Street Blues.
Yeah.
That was a great show.
It was a great show. And he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
When he retired, I was like, of course.
Yeah.
He brought that every fucking night.
Yeah.
We watched that. The episode when his son died, he went back to drinking and being with hookers and getting shot. And God, that dude.
And David,
Mr. Franz, you were fucking amazing, man.
Yeah, you are, Dennis. He had David Milch there, who was, one of the greatest writers, I think, in television history.
Right.
And he wrote in true dialogue. I mean, nothing was conversational. It was like the Eugene O'Neill of TV. It was always very poetic and of course very specific. A Playhouse, you learn not to really mess with not to really incorporate the dialogue too much into your improvisational work. That's a bit of a mistake, because you end up having an irreverence for the spoken word.
Sure.
That makes you often lazy with the dialogue.
Sure.
So that if you have to do classic pieces, like I'm going to be doing a staged reading of Ibsen's Enemy of the People at the Austin Shakespeare Theater Company in December. Luckily, I have the text there with me, but if you're not on text, if you're not on point with an Ibsen piece and you're improvising and playing around, you can do that a little bit with Ibsen, but you're off. You're not doing the work as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
And so, you get somebody like Milch, you have to do his dialogue. The script supervisor will come out there and actually correct where an is or a the. And if you're not on point with the dialogue, you're not on point with the show. So, and that was a challenge because Milch would oftentimes rewrite. You wouldn't get a new scene until 6 a.m. that morning. You're shooting at 7:30.
Right.
And the scene was completely different. That's what happened. One of the shows I did where I had to be a drug addict and projectile vomit on Sipowicz, I think. And I auditioned for that scene for Paris Barkley, who ended up directing Cherokee Kid. He was one of the producers on that show.
Sure.
And it was a great scene, and they completely rewrote it. 6 a.m., I get an entirely different scene. I have to go in and shoot that day. And I have added issues where the projectile vomit was going to come out of a 5-gallon tub of something that was next to my chair, and they'd run a hose up the side of my head and taped it onto the side of my face or filming from over here. And I can't move. I can't move. I just have to say the words sort of without moving, and then open my mouth, and they push the fake vomit out. Really artificial. Those are the kinds of challenges that you're not equipped necessarily to meet when you come fresh out of acting school,
right?
And you confront these things like that. Like, how can I be human with this thing going on? How can I be human when I'm getting a rewritten script and have to be word perfect in an hour?
Right.
How can I be human with cameras revolving around me and going all around me, and I have to wait for my cue, the camera cue, in order for me to speak? Yada yada yada.
Yeah. But that's the things I talk about when I teach now. I talk about all that stuff that was vitally important. I give an example. I was on the TV show Revenge, and I was playing head of security at a fundraiser, a political fundraiser. And I'm over here at the door. The metal detector, they come through every third person. I have to use a wand. And then the action starts happening with the main people over here. And then the leads, and okay. And then I go over here, and my guy comes with me. I say, no, you got to come, stay here. I got to go over what, you know what I mean? I tell them about all this stuff because I talk about preparation that we are taught that's vitally important to learn it. And I say, you may not get into your scene for minutes, and you can't be thinking about what you got to do, because I got to grab one of the guys and throw him out for assaulting a girl. You know what I mean? So I talk about that all the time. There's a great scene in Girls, the TV show Girls, with Adam Driver, and I forget the other guy. The guy was great. I forget his name, though. Sorry, but he was great. But they have this scene where they're walking. They get on the Staten Island ferry. They get off. They're taking a dog back to its owner, and it just...
One continuous shot.
Yeah, it just continues on. And I have such a big auditorium where my class is. We have a stage and a big space that I have people walk around and because that's what happens. Many things happen. How many fights you've been in where you had to act? I mean, it's like all this experience that nobody tells you about, even though we're out of school with a lot of people with knowledge. I mean, Jeff, one of the earliest things, I say this all the time here, one of the earliest things Jeff said to me, best things, they didn't hire you to prepare. They hired you to do a job.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about having working actors at a place where you're studying acting, is that they can help integrate their experience into the technique that they're teaching you.
Right.
I remember Tracy and I had an on-camera class one time. Most on-camera classes, they have you do speeches or scenes. They just put static cameras up there. I was like, let's do a different on-camera class. Let's do a class where we confront the problems that I've had to confront.
Sure.
And throw these kids into the scenes with the same problems that I've had to confront, and let's train them within that context. And it was great. It was fun. And we got people engaged in doing the camera, playing different parts, so to speak, of set personnel.
Yeah.
So they got to act in their own way while somebody else had to deal with the obstacle of what's the camera going to do right now.
Yeah.
I think that's helpful. And if you can't do that, if you don't have the facility to do that, or you don't have a special class for that, then at least your experience in front of the camera pays off when it comes time to giving actors advice on how to prepare and work on stuff.
No, I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that. Sometimes I just have people with cameras on stage.
So they're comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just used to people being there.
Yeah. That's good.
First thing I ever did, which I also died in, they had the camera in the seat next to me in the car and picking up someone in the airport. I'm supposed to look right in the camera. I couldn't stop giggling.
Yeah.
I just kept giggling. I turned and I go, hee hee hee. First time ever, so you got to have experience. You got to get used to doing the best you can. So after Jimmy Smits beat you up, so this is the thing, you got a lot of talents. You may not know this, but when you did Prayer of the Roller Boys,
Yeah.
but you're on skates.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I tried.
Oh, I just remember you being on. I don't know if they cut and you're on the ground, but I just remember there's a group of people. You're in sync.
You were in sync. That wasn't easy to do.
Well, I'm sure of that.
Especially over the ground, they usually had us do that over.
Right.
But I did get a pair of rollerblades, and for a month, I would go out to the parking lot down the street from my house, where it used to be the Victory Drive-In Theater.
Victory Drive-In, yeah.
It became the Holiday Health Spa and then Lucky Market. But at night, that place was completely empty, and it was just blacktopped. Mm-hmm. That's how I learned to rollerblade. And I was rollerblading pretty goddamn good. And then they would put us on these surfaces near the boardwalk in Venice, and on the boardwalk in Venice where there's sand and grit and cracks, and that was a completely different phenomenon. It was super hard to maintain that silly synchronization. It wasn't hard for Corey Haim because he's Canadian and he grew up playing soccer. The guy was like a trick skater.
Right.
I mean, he was like nuts. He'd flip in the air and do all kinds of crazy stuff. He was totally coordinated. I felt like I was out of my league.
They were ice skaters, right? The Canadians.
Yeah, those Canadians.
So Blood and Concrete, which is always funny. Billy Zane, who went on to big Titanic fame, lost his hair very young.
Yes, he did.
Oh, he was also in Dead Calm, right?
He was. That's a great movie. That's a great movie. That's totally scary.
Yeah.
I'm a huge horror buff, so take it from me, Dead Calm is a great horror film. I mean, it's sort of like action thriller, I guess it would be considered, but it's got horror elements because he's absolutely insane, and Nicole Kidman is trapped on a boat with him, with a psychopathic killer.
Right.
And trying to put it all together.
She was young.
She was.
Yeah.
She was a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked with her.
Did you?
Yeah.
In what?
Hemingway and Gellhorn.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to brag about her. You can also brag about Tracy Lords.
Oh, dude. I like Tracy Lords.
Yeah, but you acted with her. You were her boyfriend, husband?
I was her ex-husband. We had a kid together.
Yeah.
I was a total fuck up and trying to get my life back together and maybe be a good dad. That was in Certain Guys.
Yeah.
And the little movie that we did in Dallas, Texas, and then the main actor became a great director and writer. He did. He got nominated for The Station Agent.
Oh,
he
wow.
did Win-Win.
Oh, okay.
He eventually produced and directed 13 Reasons Why, which a TV series that I did for Netflix. But he did Good Night and Good Luck. He played a part in that with Strathairn. It was Strathairn, I think, was the main character. And he's quite accomplished, but in the other creative aspect, in the directing, writing, producing.
David Strathairn? Is that his name?
David Strathairn, yeah.
Strathairn?
Yeah.
He was in
Good Night and Good Luck.
I was going to say he was in
played
LA
Morrow.
Confidential with me. I was in LA Confidential with him. So,
Copy that, yeah.
my starring role as the racist. Yeah, so you were her no good husband.
Did I hit that?
You're fine. I just want to see.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I stretched my knee and I think. Thank you.
So I was in that movie.
What?
The Tracy Lords, Mark Pellegrino
You
movie.
were?
I played the voice of a cab driver.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
Scott Trost got me in that or something. Yeah,
Trost?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I had to,
Weird.
Tracy gets in a cab, and I'm like, where to, ma'am? I wasn't the driver. I was just the voice of the driver. Something like that.
So when the director knew that Tracy Lords was going to come on the project, he's like, Mark, would you like to have lunch with her? He wanted me to approve of her as a cast member, which I thought was cool. Okay, sure, I'll have lunch with her. Because I was skeptical, that we know her background. Everybody should know Tracy Lords' background. If you don't, she was a porn queen.
Scott, do you?
Yes, very much. I went to have coffee with her and lunch at a coffee house right down the street from my apartment. And I thought I was going to be in and out of there in 45 minutes, just a quick talk, and then get out. She was actually dynamic and intelligent and totally interesting. Now, it could be that I set the bar super low and I expected something really unimpressive, and all she had to do was just step over that 2 inches of bar, so to speak. But I found her to be intriguing as fuck. And I started to get a little bit of a crush on her. And when we worked together, I had a huge crush on her. Huge crush on her. Because she was so cool. Didn't go anywhere, but it was fun working with her. She turned out to be a really, really cool lady, really smart, really interesting. A lot more. She had a lot more going on, a lot more going for her than I think even that part or any future parts she got would be able to tap,
When I was doing a voiceover, there was a very attractive woman playing a reporter, playing a journalist. And I wish I remember the word. She couldn't say the word, and the director was like, you just got to say, and she couldn't say it. And then she says, well, maybe my character doesn't say the word correctly. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're a fucking journalist. You know the word.
Wow.
It went on for a while. It was before I had to sit there before I got in the booth. But
well, that's terrible too, because once you start getting in that niche where you can't pronounce a word or you can't say it, it starts to get in your head that way, and it's really hard to break that. So I feel for her.
Yeah. Well, no, I've been there.
Yeah.
Not like that. I'm too smart for that. I've been there in other ways.
Oh, I got that on The Hunted. I had this big long speech that I have to give the director of the FBI or something, and it was like 2 pages long, and I would get about halfway through that speech, and I would always go up. And Billy Friedkin was the director of that, and Billy Friedkin is out of his gourd.
Right.
Okay, passed away now, so I don't have to worry about him coming back to get me, because he would. So he was out of his gourd, and he threw something out. He's like, you got to memorize your lines, Mo. You got to memorize. And I'm like, Billy, I know my lines. I'm like, why don't you do me a favor and put 1,000-foot mag on there? I will just go through the speech, go through it until I get it. Just leave it shooting. Just leave it rolling. He's like, okay, let's go. Let's roll. And he did what I said, and we were eventually able to get through it. But every time I kept fucking into this one spot, and then once it got into my head,
oh yeah,
I feel it coming.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah, yeah. The simplicity of it all.
And then it takes a long time to get out of that until you finally start rolling again.
Yeah.
Did you see Orphans? Did you see the Broadway production of Orphans with Alec Baldwin and Ben Foster?
No.
Do you know the play, though?
Huh?
Do you know the play?
Oh, I know the play. Well, I've done the play.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
I remember Ben Foster's a great actor. I think he's a great actor. I've loved his film work. And I remember watching him up there and thinking, oh, he is very nervous about the very end. This was his first time on Broadway.
Right.
And he was playing Treat. And I'm thinking, I could see that he was nervous about the very end.
About breaking down?
Yep. He has to have that massive breakdown at the end. What a horrible thing to have to anticipate on a Broadway show. And I could see it. It troubled him. I wondered, I know the show didn't last that long. No. I saw a preview of it. But I wondered how long it took him to get over that hump, because once that's in there, you got to flush it out.
Yeah.
You flush it out.
Yeah. Shia LaBeouf got fired from that.
I know. He would have been great in that part.
I think it would have been better.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. So that's
He's got that vulnerability. He's got that, he's not only, Ben Foster had the tough, sort of crazy off the hook part of the character, but Shia can bring that vulnerability, that sense that he's really a scared kid.
Right. You ever see his audition? There's a long tape of him. He's like eating a sandwich. He's just reading the whole play.
No.
Yeah, he's like in his kitchen eating a sandwich.
He's pretty special. I've always thought he was special.
He was always very nice to my son. My son would audition where they shot Even Stevens, the kid show he was on.
Oh, I didn't know he was on a kid show.
Shia LaBeouf?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Even Stevens. He was great on it.
Oh, good.
He was great. So
he's a kid actor. So he's been doing it like DiCaprio since they got out of diapers, basically. Okay.
Yeah, so Kyle would audition down there, and then one time they were outside, on a break or something. He was standing there, and Kyle was 7, something like that, really young, and he went by and he went, "Hi." And so I was like, hey, hi, little man. Hey, what are you doing then? Are you going to act? Oh, hey, man, you're an actor? Oh, we're actors. He was just overly nice to him. And Kyle just walked away just beaming because he watched the show. I watched the show with him. I thought he was great as a kid because, I was watching with Kyle. I thought he was great on the show. So he's a good actor. He's a really good actor.
He is good.
You ever want to try plant-based eating?
I have.
What, you're a little confused, overwhelmed? You don't know how to get started?
Definitely.
Well, there's a simple answer to that. Go to Debbie Chew's Chew On Vegan YouTube channel. Debbie Chew is a plant-based RN. I've known Debbie for over 38 years, and she's very good at what she does. You go to the channel, and there's over 300 recipes. They're simple, easy to make, and they're delicious. If you want to try it, you just might get healthy. Give it a shot. Chew On Vegan. So Northern Exposure.
Yeah. So they had auditioned every German in Los Angeles for that part. I think they went through 300 or 400 German people, and they finally chose me,
right.
a non-German. Actually, I am German. I just found this out a couple of years ago. But certainly not a native speaker. And I had a great time shooting that. I got to do a German accent. I got to play this wacky artist.
You got to do the freak out dance.
Got to do the freak out dance. I got to play with some very interesting people.
Why can't I think of his name? The guy who played the astronaut.
Yeah, Barry
Corbin.
Yes, Barry Corbin. Now, Bob knew Barry Corbin and said, Barry is great. You're going to find he works very different from us. He does it the same way every time, but it's always organic and good. And I found that. He did it the same way every time, but it was always committed. I never felt that he was acting. I never felt that there was an ounce of phoniness in the guy. It always seemed real. And it gave me a lot every time I worked with him.
I did a film called Dunsmore with him in Florida in 2002.
Oh.
Nice man, good actor.
Is he still with us?
Huh?
Is he still with us?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, good.
I did a short film trying to make it into a feature film, probably 5 years with him. We talked about Dunsmore, came on the set. Talia Shire was in it, and I kept calling her. I said, if we were married, you'd be Tally Lally. I kept telling her that. And then she gave me her number for me and Sherry. I was married at the time to Sherry for us to go have lunch, and I lost her number. And it always bummed me out. She was so sweet to me. Tally. That was her nickname. Tally Lally. Yeah, Barry Corbin. Earl Brown starred in that. You know who Earl is? You ever work with Earl? He was Matt Doherty in Deadwood.
Oh, okay.
He was also
Never saw Deadwood.
Oh, he was also the handicapped brother in Something About Mary.
Okay.
Franks and Beans.
Okay.
And he was the first guy to be ejected out of John Malkovich's head in being
John. Okay.
No, but he's done a ton of work. Earl was great. He was great in this film, too. It was really great. But anyway, but Barry was there. Earl killed Barry, you son of a bitch. But Barry Corbin was very cool.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Old school and gives you a lot. Very professional. I have no complaints. I had a lot of fun on that show.
Yeah. And the German accent, when did you learn that for that part?
Yeah. So, I was always practicing accents that I thought I would have to use: Russian, German, French, Swedish. And I would practice them from time to time. I'd go a day or two just doing the accents just to make sure they were fresh. And German turned out to be very good. I had a guy from the German embassy who was there, and he'd correct any pronunciation that was just a little bit off. Luckily, Germans aren't, they're an uptight people in general, but not uptight about their accents. The English, on the other hand, they are very uptight. I've done English accents twice for stuff. I did one for Caffeine where I played somebody from a very specific part of London. Yeah,
there's 70 different accents just in London.
Yes. And, if you say Tuesday instead of Tuesday, they're going to get on you and they're going to make you loop that shit.
You've heard Peter Sellers, I'm sure, go through the list of the regions in England.
No, but it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I think John Cleese, too, with Peter Sellers. Obviously, John Cleese idolized Peter Sellers, and they had that type of, a man from here and here, Hertfordshire, Lancashire, he would just go through the different accents. He was amazing. There was a girl in my class, Chrissy McCarthy. Shout out to Chrissy. She was married to a German, Heino. And at the time you did the show, he said to me, Mark Pellegrino, that was a very good German accent.
Hey!
Yeah.
Thank you, Heino.
What was the other one? Drowning Mona? Were you in? Is that a movie you were in?
Drowning Mona, yes.
With Danny DeVito?
Danny DeVito, Bette Midler, Jamie Lee Curtis, Casey Affleck, Nev Campbell.
Affleck. He must have been a kid at the time.
He played my brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was pretty fresh on the scene. Yeah, that movie was really fun. That movie was really, really fun. But I remember doing a whole scene where they shot all my coverage, and me and Casey went through a scene, probably about 12 different takes, and then they did his close up, and did it a bunch of times, and then they did one final take where he completely improvised the whole thing, and made it a completely different end to the whole thing. And like, cut, good, that's the one. I'm like, I didn't react to any of that on my side. So, which happened to Jim Carrey when I was doing number 23. I did this take that was completely out of what ended up being in there. And Jim was like, I didn't react to that on my side. And Joel Schumacher just said, you wouldn't. And then just kept the camera. It took the camera and we went off. But I don't think they used that take because it was fairly very, very emotional, unlike the more subdued version they used. But in this, my laughter at the very end of the scene doesn't make any sense because there was no actual motivation for it because of all the stuff that he did, where he came in, he just improvised, being really freaked out. And he did it very well. It was quite fun to watch. I just wish I had an opportunity to respond to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I was doing two movies at a little independent film called Lost in the Pershing Point Hotel, which we did as a play in theater with Leslie Jordan.
Yeah, okay, Mark. I was there.
What?
I was there.
For that?
At the Ambassador Hotel.
Yes. It's that I had a big fight with them because I was like, you guys got to shoot me out early because I have to be on the set for Drowning Mona at 7 a.m. and it's like in Santa Ana or wherever the fuck.
Right.
Somewhere in bumfuck
You and
Egypt.
Leslie Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was a bad moment because I went there. Midnight came around. They were nowhere near shooting my stuff. I'm like, I got to go. Sorry. I left. I went home, went to sleep, went to the set, Drowning Mona. On the way to the set, it's a scene where Casey wakes me up from sleeping, and he keeps trying to wake me up in the scene to tell me stuff, to confess. And I was like, I'm gonna try this scene sleeping with my eyes open. And it was just a thought that I had on the way there. And when we did it in the scene, it's quite hilarious because you see me fall asleep with my eyes open. You hear me snoring, but my eyes are staring at him. And he's like, whack! He's slapping me awake. Anyway, funny to me, not so funny to you unless you maybe see the film.
No, that's great. That's great. I couldn't do that. I saw a guy on stage once, the first theater company I was in, and he did 20 minutes. He died. And someone else was kind of freaking out in the room. Was a play, Alliance Repertory Company in Burbank, my first acting teacher, and I built the theater. And this guy, he died with his eyes open. It was, it was great. It was creepy for like 20 minutes. I couldn't do that.
I couldn't do that.
No. Well, you did it.
No, I mean, I fell asleep with my eyes open. So he's talking to me. He wakes me up. He's talking to me. He's trying to confess that he thinks he killed somebody. And I sort of nod off. Like this,
yeah.
And given the situation, it was just funny, but I didn't have to keep my eyes open for 20 minutes. I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, just.
No, I wouldn't be able to do it. I can barely hold my breath when they, sweep the camera over you and hold it there.
Yeah.
No, I don't like that. There should be a class just in playing dead.
Yeah. Well, and taught by Wim Hof.
And taught by Wim Hof, right? Because he could hold his breath for 15 minutes or something.
Yeah. I'm up to 2 minutes and 34 seconds.
That's good.
Yeah. With the breath out.
Yeah, I know. That's terrible.
Yeah.
I know that. That's terrible.
So I'm on my way to 15 minutes. You ever see David Blaine do the
underwater thing?
Yeah, but when he holds his breath for 17 or 18 minutes. I send that out to all my students. I put it on Facebook before because I don't think people understand, and I send it out and I say in search of greatness. If you want to achieve greatness, with what we do, with what anybody does, here's a guy that went out and achieved greatness.
I thought he held his breath for something like 29 minutes.
Well, it might have been. It was maybe the old record.
He broke the record.
Yeah, but that's the thing is what this guy went through. And I'm like, people want to be movie stars. And Alec Baldwin has a quote I don't I don't. Hey, Shell, we're on the podcast live with Mark Pellegrino.
Oh, what's up?
What's up?
That's Kyle Lally.
Hey, Kyle.
How you doing?
Good, man.
Question. What year did Mom graduate high school?
Oh, my God. That's so crazy.
Say it.
1980.
She graduated in 1980.
Yeah, but she went to middle school, the same one you did. I was going to mention
Madison?
it. Yeah, but she graduated when you went there. Yeah, she lived on Coldwater and Kittredge.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why I'm selling the car to a guy right here who went to high school with Mom.
Oh, really? Who is it?
It's Robert Susanna.
Oh, hey, Robert. I guess I don't know the name. Well, yeah, 1980, Grant High School.
He graduated 83.
Mark Pellegrino. Does he know Mark Pellegrino from the neighborhood?
No, he might know. Ask him if he knows Steve DeGioia or Philip Ebid.
Do you know Steve?
Ask him if he knows Steve DeGioia.
Does he know who? Hold on. Does he know who?
Steve DeGioia.
No.
Do you know Danny Dabba?
That name sounds very familiar. Because that's such an unusual last name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Philip Ebid.
No.
Scott Barrera.
No. I
I'm-
went to school with, what's her name? There was a famous actress's daughter that went to high school with us at Grant. I forgot her name. Lonnie Anderson's daughter went to high school with us.
Oh yeah, I think I knew that.
Right?
Yeah, I went to Notre Dame. I was in the class of '83, but all my friends went to Grant.
Oh, really? So you have Brian McGeary?
Brian McGeary. That sounds very familiar. Was he class of '83?
He's a year younger than me.
Okay, so '84. It sounds really familiar, but I don't know him personally.
Yeah, that's what the year 82. I think it's here. Corvallis
Yeah.
combined with Notre Dame, right? Is that right?
No, they finally combined. I mean, they were our sister school, but in '84, yeah, we became co-ed.
Right.
So the year after I graduated.
Okay. Well, yeah. No, there's actually good friends still with my buddy who I may hook up Kyle with who could afford this Q8 out here. Brett Leitner. Do you know Brett?
Yeah, that sounds familiar actually.
Brett Leitner. He lives in. I'm in Redondo Beach. He's in Manhattan Beach. He can afford this. How much is it? $160,000 car.
Yeah, Brett.
All right.
Well, let's get back to it.
All right, man. Thanks.
It's good talking to you, dude.
Good talking to you, man.
He's 32.
Fuck me, dude.
I leave the phone here for that type of interaction.
That's crazy.
Yeah. You remember when he was born?
I do.
You-
Fuck. I mean, the last time I saw him, he was just a kid,
Yeah.
just a little boy.
Yeah.
Time flies, man.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
What were we on now? Tracy Lords? What were we talking
No, we were on. We were talking
Drowning
about Casey
Mona.
Affleck,
Casey
Drowning
Affleck.
Mona, Falling Asleep Awake. Oh, and then, but that put me in hot water with Leslie, because I had to shit can Lost in the Pershing Point Hotel for Drowning Mona, and he called and left a pretty awful message on my machine, and for like 3 or 4 years we didn't speak, and then we got
Aaron
back together.
Chandler put it back together?
Aaron Chandler. Well, no, she didn't put it back together. I think Leslie went on a sobriety walk, and he decided to make amends to people that he felt he hurt in his life. And of course, I'm always hip when you say you're sorry, and you mean it.
Yeah.
I'll accept it.
I agree.
And so we became friends again. And then he ended up being in a short film that Tracy directed a series of shorts all over the world.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, called Strangers in a Strange Land. And he was in one of them. Yeah, he was very good in ours.
Yeah, I was there. Remember, I guess it's maybe it's still not over. You're still alive. Henry Burial was documenting your work.
Oh, well, what we were doing, yeah. Henry was helping me research the hustler aspect of Lost in the Pershing Point Hotel.
You guys went to that. You were doing something for Dick Clark's kid. What was his name?
Yeah.
Dwayne.
Well, Dwayne and I were sort
You
of
guys went
loosely
to that
working
hustler
on
bar on Gardner and Santa Monica. The Hunters.
the Hunters. Yeah, I would go there with Leslie after every show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So after every show of Lost in the Pershing Point Hotel, he and I would go to the Hunter, and I'd hang out with all the hustlers, and we'd drink. And back in the day when I was drinking, But no, Henry was helping me sort of. I forget what exactly we were doing, documenting this crazy street life. But it might have been for 40 Deuce, which was a play that's
right, 40 Deuce
that we were working on. It might have been for something else, but whatever it was, we found ourselves in some pretty crazy situations. I mean, we were downtown by the Barclay Hotel, which is this
I know
dive.
The Barclay, man, but back then that was a fucking shithole.
It was bad.
There was no renovation of downtown at that time.
Zero, and there were drug dealers on every corner. And we had one guy come up to us because we had a camera. One guy come up to us and say, "You can't have that camera here, man. You guys are gonna get killed." And I might have had a gun on me too, so I think I might have been like, "Yeah, somebody's gonna get hurt if that happens." But it was sketchy. It was right by the Mission, and it was a sea of homeless people and tons of addiction going on, lots of crime everywhere. People were eyeing our camera like, "What the fuck? We want a piece of that shit." So,
back in the day, I used to go down there on panels. We used to hand out cigarettes and cookies, back in the early days when I was newly sober. But back then, obviously no tents or anything, and you would just be there, and it was fucking, Orwellian, man. It would just be people just lined up sitting on the curb, with their feet in the street, just sitting like 100 in a row, but just sitting, not doing anything.
No, it's
just
bad.
fucking sitting. And that was the first place I saw where the counter, the register was pushed up against the door at a liquor store. People couldn't come in anymore. Dude, we're talking 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And people, they're like, I want a bag of chips over there. They weren't allowed to walk in, It was fucking,
Yeah, so anybody thinks it's a post-apocalyptic now, I mean, back then it was worse.
I think I went down there a couple times, you guys were doing Persian Point, because we went into the kitchen where Robert Kennedy was killed, and they had the drain where his blood ran down. And Sherry and I went there probably 87. When did you guys film that? Well, it was early 90s?
90, that had to be like 97, 98.
Oh, was that like?
Yeah.
So Sherry and I went there before Kyle was born. So he was born in 91. So we walked in there. We went to the Coconut Grove. We stood there. It was fucking amazing. I mean, it just breaks my heart that place is gone. That would be the busiest hotel in Los Angeles, with the history and with the pool and the Coconut Grove would be the hottest fucking nightclub. Yeah, I mean, obviously it'd be reinvented, but it was all there. And then we went up to the kitchen, that was 87, 88 or something. Went up to the kitchen, which is kind of eerie for those of us or for anybody who cares or remembers the time. You see the footage. I was a small child. Yeah, and so when they were doing the Persian Point, guys doing the Persian Point, I went up there with somebody. I was like, you got to see this, and it was somebody much younger, probably, maybe someone from our acting class or something was down watching you or PAing or something, and went in there, and, we're in there for a minute, and someone comes in, hey, what are you doing in here? I said, oh, man, we're just checking it out, man. It's historic. Can't be in here. What do you mean you can't be in here? People all over should. Yeah, got to pay. Got to pay to be in here now. I was like, what the fuck is that about, weird, man? So that was my experience there. But yeah, I remember you and Leslie working together the day I was there. But yeah, but that was a good project. Yeah, I keep in touch with Erin on Facebook. I just remember the scene she did with Tuesday night on a scene night where she was getting attention for being a new folk singer or something, and Tuesday had been working so hard, and she kind of accidentally, and she'd be like, Erin with her great ability, like, they're calling me, and Tuesday's on a typewriter, like, you motherfucker. Oh yeah, I can appear there. So I forget what it was called, but yeah. So yeah, the Coen brothers.
Yeah, the Coen brothers. Yeah, so I got to read The Big Lebowski, and I was like, this is right after Fargo. I'm like, it's good, but it's no Fargo. Yeah. And the script was good, but suffice it to say, as good as they write, I mean, their visual sense is so good that it makes the script even better. So I never read Fargo. I wonder if I'd have the same feeling like this isn't Fargo after seeing it. But you know, I got the audition for the blonde man. Now on IMDb, it's called Jackie Treehorn Thug #1 or something like that. But it was actually the blonde man, and I went in there and I did it. I don't remember if I did it for them initially, or if I just was put on tape or something. But then I came in for them again, and both Joel and Ethan are sitting there on the couch. They're totally laid back, and I'm like, hey man, come in. And Joel's like, you're one of the best blonde men we've ever seen. And I'm like, cool. He's like, go ahead. And I did my thing, and they're like, thanks, man. I'm like, thank you. And I walked out, got the part.
Did you say, where's the money, Lebowski?
I did. It was the Where's the Money Lebowski scene. I mean, that's pretty much the entirety of it.
Can we get one, Where's the Money, Lebowski?
Yeah, where's the money, Lebowski? Bunny says you're good for it. Where's the money, Lebowski? Where's the money, Lebowski? Where's the fucking money, shithead?
I think I saw it down there.
Don't fuck with us, or whatever. I forget what the last part was. Actually, he was doing all the dunking. I didn't dunk him at all. He had a bad neck.
Oh.
Yeah, so he did all
Movie
of the
magic.
dunking. Yeah, movie magic.
Did you urinate on his carpet?
No, but the other guy had to. Woo was a rug pisser, which I often get confused. I get confused with the rug pisser from time to time.
Right.
I guess I look like a rug pisser.
I auditioned for Macbeth for the Coen Brothers, but it was on. It was on tape. And,
Okay.
And still, I was so excited.
Yeah. Wow. So the Denzel Washington version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know who got the part?
Who?
Scott Subiani.
Oh, really?
Subiano?
Yes. I saw Subiano on there. I was like,
And I was looking to see when they said it was going to, you don't hear. So I was looking to see, then I saw his name on there. And I got really excited.
So you were the murderer. You were one of the murderers.
Yeah, I was the older murderer.
Yeah.
And I was really excited when he got it because I like Scott. He's a good dude. He works hard, and he trained in Shakespeare a lot more than I did. So when he got it, I contacted him, text or Facebook or something. I was like, dude, great. And he goes, well, how do you know? I go, well, it's not that I was up for it, but I was, in contention, and he got it. I just thought it was cool. Once, and people are like, you don't want the part? I go, once I found out I didn't get it, I was glad my friend who's a good dude got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was excited.
Yeah.
And he put on there, he talked about a table read. And day players don't usually get a table read, you know what I mean? Yeah. So he's at a table read with everybody, and I'm like, oh, fuck. Yeah. How cool was that, So, yeah.
Yeah, and I credit Tracy for that because she did Hamlet with us. We worked on that play for about 1.5 years, 2 years, and then we put it up for about 2 or 3 months. And Scott played Polonius, and I watched his evolution over the time that we were working on that play, from where he began as an actor to what he became as an actor. I want to say that it was Hamlet and Tracy's tutelage with the language, her ability to intermingle the Meisner method with, a knowledge of Shakespearean language and how to act Shakespeare properly, that pushed Subiano into a whole other realm of actor. I mean, I thought he was always talented, always very interesting to watch, but he became even deeper and much better to watch after that. So yeah, I think I remember seeing him on there and Tracy going, there he is. Yeah. That's our guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and Tracy helped me when I did the Mark Thompson film. You remember that debacle? But I had the scene.
Was that Mother Ghost?
No. It was,
213.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
a lot of stuff about that. Boy.
Yeah. I remember you fighting for me to get paid.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah. And his wife fighting for me to get paid.
His wife was too?
Yeah. I think you were on the phone with him. She was in the background saying, pay him the fucking money.
Yeah.
$500.
It was bad.
He was making tens of millions.
It was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. Yeah, that was ugly. And just like 2 years ago, maybe right before the COVID shit hit, Tracy and I were at Woodfire Grill or something on Lancashire, and up walks Mark Thompson, and he's just like, hey man, I want you to know I resolved all the issues with all the actors on the show. He was talking about 213.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, good.
But the union is so weak. Our union is so weak. I got paid a day's pay in a rehearsal, and I was supposed to get $250 a day for like years in penalty. And they accepted for me without asking me. And they go, yeah, we got your settlement. So what do you mean? That's not how you do. You ask the client. No, we got your money. I said I thought I was going to get like $5,000. I said no, never going to get that. But that's what Thompson said at the time. This is Mark Thompson of the Mark and Brian show. He said he was never going to pay, and he paid me the day rate, whatever it was, plus a wardrobe day. So.
Well, I mean, we went to blows, man. I had some major issues with people on that set because Mark had Tracy. Wanted Tracy to be on as a coach.
Yeah.
Okay. And she agreed to do it provided she could direct the Shakespeare sequences.
Right.
And then the director got his panties in a wad because the DP, who is one of the executive producers on the piece, who was a DP on The Saw, which I guess made him a big deal. He was so miffed about Tracy's presence on the set directing actors that it gave the director a complex, and he started to like resist the fact that she was on there more or less directing scenes, you know. But that's what we wanted her there for.
Yeah.
That's what Mark wanted her there for. That's what I wanted her there for because I didn't know who the director was. I wanted somebody whose vision I could trust. Who knew when I was full of shit and when I wasn't, who would call me on my stuff and keep me as authentic as possible in that kind of scenario. But he started, Chuck was his name. It started to get to him. And then I, for the first time in my whole career, had a knockdown, drag out fight with a director on the set because I hated the way he was treating my wife. So I'm like, you fucking cocksucker, you better fucking straighten your shit out. And you don't talk to my wife that way ever again. You fuck. And so needless to say, I probably burned that bridge at Lionsgate because I think he worked with Lionsgate. Just a total insecure dude, man. It's like, you know, and insecure because this is a double insecurity. Some other guy was telling him that ain't the way it's done. Some douchebag who I'd hope to work for again so I can choke him.
So that was a great learning experience for me as we go through life and acting, learning constantly from people. That Tracy and Gaddis, I just knew his first name, I just forgot it.
Keith
Gaddis. Dude, I know your first name, I just forgot it. He was helping me, All the World's a Stage was my bit, and he was helping me, and I just knew his first name, just blew out of my head. Okay, I'm gonna look it up, and then I'm gonna be like,
I'm forgetting it too.
Anyway,
I said Keith Gaddis.
Well, that's Keith Addis you're thinking of. Jeff Goldblum's, is it?
It's somebody else.
It's not Keith. No, he's a nice guy. We're still in touch.
We have to cut all of our senior moments out.
He's we're still in touch. He's a good dude. Yeah, so he helped me. Sitting outside of Studio One, and then Tracy, it was a great, all I realized that Shakespeare is just a master class in script analysis. You get your line, you got to look up the words, you got to see what it means, you talk to people.
It's a great marriage of intuition and the conceptual side of acting, which I think when we're teaching process and performance, you forget the conceptual side. You forget how important the language can be and how much the language can do to you if you're taking it seriously. If you're really saying those words with the real intention behind them, the way she would mix Meisner, which is action, doing, with those words, you're going to have an experience. I mean, Mamet said something like that in True or False when he sort of crapped on every method out there in the world and said, look, if you say the words and do the thing in the script, you're going to have an experience. Right. And it's true. You do that thing, you say those words. Shakespeare is so good that if you can wrap your head around the concepts, why you're saying them and who you're saying them to and what it means to you, you're going to have an experience.
Yeah.
Some experience.
Yeah. But it's great. It's good. Just great the process of learning as an actor.
Yeah.
So you were in the Lost World Jurassic Park.
I can't believe that's on my credits. It's not even a scene that shows up, on the normal cut. I think it has to be a director's cut. And it was silly when we were doing it.
It's on the TV version.
And it's silly.
Yeah.
It was funky and weird when we were doing it, right?
So yeah, but he came up and he was like, I was trying to undo the girl's dress the African, the real, we were with Africans because we were supposed to be in an African cantina outdoor, and we were ugly Americans. And Spielberg said, "You're at the top. You're not over the top, but you're at the top." So we had to start there. And I went to undo this girl's dress from behind, this woman's dress from behind. She turned around, dude. She was going to take my head off. I mean, she was an African woman, and Spielberg came up and said. He said, "Brian, do that again." He said, I know I'm going to get letters.
Instigator.
But just do that again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we had fun. And then Big Mike, who's the only guy who swore in Field of Dreams, Mike Milhone, was a guy I knew from when I was tending bar. He used to come in. So he was the big guy that got beat up by Pete Postlethwaite. And the funny thing is, when you cold cock the guy at the bar who's hitting on your girlfriend in front of Maura Tierney, your wife, in American Rust, I was like, well, Mark knows how to throw a punch. Do you remember how many times we had to do that?
Thank God. I blocked it.
Oh, my God. We had to do it like 20 times.
Really?
And Mike was like 250, and he fell on me. I was the first guy in line.
Oh, my God.
And then we all went down like dominoes.
Yeah, like dominoes. It was funny. I remember that.
Pete Postlethwaite, who I love to death, phenomenal actor. He's passed, so nice to me and kind on the set. He didn't know how to throw a punch.
Yeah.
And so they had to go over and over and over. And leading up to today, and I saw... I've seen American Rust. I was like, well, Mark knows how to throw a punch. And
that'll take me right out of a piece. Like, did you ever see The Night Of?
No, what is it?
It's an HBO miniseries. It's fantastic.
Oh, no, I saw The Night Of.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the guy gets, he's Arabic and he gets, yeah. Oh, yeah, I've seen
He wakes up and he thinks he's murdered this woman that he took in his father's cab all over the place, right? They have a great night, and then he wakes up, she's murdered. And it's about, when he goes to prison, spoiler alert, he hooks up with this guy who's like the badass of the prison, who was like a former middleweight boxing champion, and everybody's scared of him, and he's sort of the king of the prison. But when this guy would hit a heavy bag, I'd want to shoot myself. I'm like, you cannot be that bad.
Right.
If it says in the script you are a championship boxer, you can't throw punches like that, bro.
Right.
Sorry. Now, he might not have had time, or he might not be coordinated. It takes a long time to learn how to throw a punch right. He might not have had time to do that, but man, your pride as an actor should make you throw those punches and get on that bag until you look like a professional, even if you aren't one.
And that to me is with basketball and smoking cigarettes.
Yes, you can always tell when somebody doesn't smoke a cigarette or doesn't know how to smoke a cigarette.
And especially when the guys are hard asses and they're tatted up and they're the king, and they're like, you're like, what the fuck?
Come on, man.
What the fuck?
Just work it. Learn how to work
just
it.
work it.
So
you and I used to have these hours-long rehearsals at your place on McCadden, Las Palmas. Were you
Las Palmas, probably.
Yeah. We used to have these hours-long rehearsals. I tell my students, I was just telling them, and I repeat it all the time, and I drank the Kool-Aid about this, and it was true. If you rehearse like that and you practice, when you get in that room and there's 10 other actors in there that look like you know that you're more trained and you've worked harder than they have.
Yeah.
And when you go in that room, you're not nervous because you're just doing your thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the Meisner technique, is that it deals with the fundamental problem of acting, which is self-consciousness, right? And your attention gets on you, you become very nervous. It's all emanating from your own self-consciousness. But if you know what you're doing and you put your attention on that and on the other person, and you make that more important than whatever anxiety you might feel, you're gonna be explosive and interesting and unpredictable. And because you've trained at doing that a lot, you're going to fall into the pocket quickly and more easily than the average fella. And that means that 99% of the people out there in the waiting room are not your competition.
Right.
Because 99% of the people in California don't work on their acting craft.
Right.
I know this because I just had a kid come out here from Pennsylvania to study at Playhouse West, and I would watch that class that he was in, and it was awful. It was awful. not a single kid there could do an activity. Not a single kid there could actually work off. There was zero sensitivity, a lot of hyperneurosis, but no sensitivity. Everybody's emotionally cut off from each other. There's no connection. There's no action. There was nothing interesting. Everything was predictable. And I felt like this place is in another solar system. Now it's flown out of the solar system of the place where to learn acting and gone to something else. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying because I see it all the time. Yeah. And I see people come to me for coaching that come from well-known schools that know nothing about putting themselves into it. I was coaching a woman who was from New York, and she was playing like a tough teenager. She was young 20s, and I was coaching her. And I kind of coached her like, hey, you're from New York. You know, you come out of this like orphanage, reform school area, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing here? Where's mom? And I'm like, you grew up in the city, right? She goes, yeah. I go, okay, well, that's it. And she comes up, she's like, what the fuck are you doing here? Where's mom? I'm like, wait a minute. You know what I'm talking about? You see these people on the street, you you come out here like, yo, what the fuck? You're not taking shit from nobody, and she's playing a juvenile delinquent, you know? And dude, she came out, and she was from another one of the big schools, and she was like, yeah, what the fuck are you doing here? And then you go into your bag of tricks, you're like, what the fuck's going on?
There's no investment. There's no investment anymore.
Right.
And it's not like they're not getting the right information, because I sat in on those classes and watched Bob teach them, and it was pearls before swine. I don't know that they were catching all the things that he was teaching them. Clearly they weren't, because it wasn't presenting itself on the stage. I never saw it I never saw it. I never saw it. And I went to that class about 2 or 3 times and thought, this... At one time, that place was the place, I think, to learn acting.
It was the place to learn the necessary foundation. That all actors need to have.
I think for learning the type of focus you need on action, I think for learning real listening habits, and even more broadly, placing yourself playfully in imaginary circumstances and learning to play. Analysis, he's great too, but I think all of that's probably, I don't think that I don't have faith that the next generation is really getting the program. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. All right, analysis. Okay, so you taught me the basis of doing a speech. We call them speeches. You may know them as monologues. In the backyard, you remember the Dale Johnson speech?
Dale Johnson, yeah.
Yeah. Bob gave me in Welcome Home Soldier.
Oh, so that would have been on Morrison. That's where the rehearsals were.
Yeah. And we did a play about the treatment of Vietnam veterans when they came home from Vietnam. We took their side, which was amazing. It turned into a life experience. Now, as long as the play was, and I think I was in it for 17 years. I don't know how long you were in it, but...
about 7 or 8.
I left, and then when Maxine died, unfortunately, God rest her soul, she was a very sweet woman.
Yeah.
Bob said he was going to go back and do it, and he asked me if I would do it with him. And I said, okay, so your wife had,
Right.
He was kind of broken. Don't blame him. And so I went back for years more. But anyway, so he gave me the Agent Orange speech because Kyle was a baby. And boy, did that emotion come out of me in the beginning before I learned how to. One of the greatest things that he ever told me is use the emotion, don't let it use you. Which I tell my students. But yeah, so I went over to Morrison. I was talking to the Mark Pellegrino, and we went out in the backyard. Yeah, man, against the wall of the garage.
Yeah.
We, we talked about doing the speech. Yeah. Dale Johnson. It was a great speech. Great speech.
Thank you. Yeah. Basically, the play was made up of a compilation of speeches from various experiences and from various books. Tony compiled, and he gave me a speech that didn't even make sense. And I said, I can't do this. You got to let me just sort of write one, I think. And so I wrote one that was a compilation of some stories that I'd heard. And yeah, I liked doing that speech. It was quite an experience. That whole thing was quite an experience for all of us.
It was an experience, man. Now,
Social experience.
The thing when I was doing the speech about the guy who went to USC and UCLA and got made fun of and had one arm.
Yeah.
And then a guy comes up to me after the play in a wheelchair, missing his legs from the knee down and missing one arm from here down. He comes up to me and says, "Thank you. Thank you for showing us some dignity." You're never going to get that anywhere. I mean, who was the guy that you first met? The guy who kicked it off at the VA?
Casey?
No, Casey was the guy who cried during...
Yeah, he would cry during my speech every time. Kicked it off at the VA.
He ended up... You were close with him. He ended up having like his breastplate removed.
Oh, John Allgood.
Okay, that was John Allgood.
Yeah.
There was another... Yeah. So... Nobody had talked about Vietnam. You know, if you weren't there, don't talk about it. And we do this speech in 1991. John Allgood goes down, right? He takes the flyers to the VA. And the veterans start coming. They're relatively young men. War's only been over since, 75, the fall of Saigon, March of 75. So the war's only been over for 16 years. So these guys are in some in their 30s and 40s, and they start coming. And they start freaking out in a good way. And they start telling people, we start getting busloads of people, the Brotherhood of Vietnam, Point Ministries, and they're giving us awards, that we're hanging on the wall there. And they're coming in there. And they don't know it's a play. They don't know it's a play, so they get up and start doing speeches. It's all about these veterans in an audience, and it's a parade. And all the protesters are taking credit for ending the war, and us as
we sort of take over the protests, and start telling them the way it really is. Yeah, it's a very condescending parade celebrating the protesters and not the Vietnam veterans, and we sort of take it over in Waiting for Lefty spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
So for anybody who doesn't know, that play, Waiting for Lefty, was a play they did at the Group Theater, and they were emulating the Moscow Art Theater in the first studio in Moscow, and their productions, Lee Strasberg had seen some of their early productions, and Stella Adler, and they brought that same vibe to the Group Theater in America, and they did a socially conscious theater company, and this play, Waiting for Lefty, was one of those socially conscious plays that sort of hit everybody at the time in the gut. And so at the very end of the play, where one of the characters tries to urge all of the characters in the play to strike, when they say strike, the whole crowd was so engaged in the piece that the whole crowd stood up and yelled strike along with the players. And that's sort of what would happen in the early going of Welcome Home Soldier. We had those Waiting for Lefty experiences. Sandy even came and saw the play.
Well, I know. He came in and he'd be sitting in the front row and his glasses were this big, and I'm doing my speech, one of my speeches, and I'm like, that's Sandy Meisner sitting there looking at me. He was very kind to me after the play too, but I think he came a couple times, but he'd be up there and just be reflecting with those glasses as big as a drive-in movie screen. I'm like, Sandy Meisner's here.
To me, that's the golden age of Playhouse West.
Oh, for sure.
Right there, the late '80s, early to mid '90s. That's when we put out that's when we improvised for the short Little Surprises that got nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah.
And it just felt like
Sam Whipple's balls were nominated.
Yes, they were, and they were balls, hefty balls. Yeah. So I felt like that's where we had a group of folks there at Playhouse that took Bob's vision very seriously. I mean, Bob wanted to start a group theater in Los Angeles. An impossible vision, but it really rubbed off on a lot of us.
Yeah.
And I guess the soul of Playhouse was sort of born then. We did 7 Habits groups, and we got together. We had movie watch nights. We did hours and hours of rehearsals together. We helped each other out, with actors' breakdowns and rehearsing scenes with each other and helping each other get parts. And it was just such a great communal atmosphere of real artistic generosity and
sure,
and trying to work hard, really trying to work hard, that I just don't think is there anymore. And it's not Bob's fault. He's saying he's saying many of the same things that he said to us. He just doesn't. He just is not the taskmaster that he was to whip the people into shape.
The thing
like I
that
think they need.
happened, one of the things that happened to us is in Welcome Old Soldiers, I was just mentioning getting flyers down at the VA and Vietnam veterans coming. And then we would go down there, I would go down there, Clark Tufts would go down there. We'd get there and we'd bring back anywhere between 6 and 10 guys at a time.
We had caravans. You guys had caravans going there.
And some people had their own cars, but a lot of them didn't. They would come down and watch and it would change their lives. Then we would buy them dinner at Little Tony's after the play. And they would tell us
their stories.
Of being in fucking Vietnam and walking point and fucking booby traps and watching people die and listening to them cry. And then Charles, coach, we called him, 6'6" black man, sat in the back, and when he didn't realize it was a play, and he got up and he was like, "How come there's no brothers on that panel? We were there, and he was.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then we had one guy got up and he told Stanton to sit down, and he said, "I'll tell you what the government taught me how to do. They taught me how to kill. So you better sit down and let that man finish." And Stanton was back. He said, "I'm not going out there. I'm not going back out there." But stuff like this happened. People thought it was so real. They were so engulfed in it. And yeah, you'll never... And by us listening to them, the research that we did, it was almost like in a time frame of Daniel Day-Lewis, because we had years to listen to these people and have it ingrained in us. And that can never happen again because Vietnam vets are now... So you had to be 18 in 71 when they stopped sending new people, 17 in 71. So you had to be born in 54. But a lot of guys were born in the 40s, and of course from Agent Orange and everything else, a lot of them are just dying off.
John Allgood's gone.
Yeah. Oh, he died pretty young, right? Because he had some bad...
He was a practicing alcoholic. He went down the rabbit hole a few times when I knew him, and then he had to have open heart surgery, and he got the chest infection. They had to debride the bone and remove his sternum, and that was the whole thing. And I was trying to get him recognized on Dennis Prager's talk show, for being maimed by the VA.
Right.
And nobody... Putnam, I tried to get him on Putnam. I couldn't get him on there. To try to get him some compensation, because he couldn't work.
Right.
He couldn't do anything with the disability that he had that was caused by the VA. Caused by their... Right. After the surgery, he would go to the emergency room and say, "My chest is hurting." And they're like, "Go away, it's post-op, here's some pain meds." Nobody would x-ray him. Nobody cared to look to see if there was an infection in the bone. Right. Nothing. Until it became so severe that they had to take out 2 ribs and a sternum.
Right.
And I mean, those were the days when we were very idealistic. And so it hurt quite a bit when we would find the occasional Vietnam veteran who was a scam artist, who would sit there and, make us jump through emotional hoops only to discover that they were total liars.
Gary.
Yeah. And Bobby Pickle. I don't know if you remember Bobby Pickle.
For some reason I don't.
And then there's Blair. Remember Blair?
Yeah, Blair.
But you knew Blair was a fraud from the very beginning.
Blair was one of the early trans people who said I had the surgery already, and he'd wear tight jeans with his balls hanging out and
with the moose knuckle going.
Yeah. He'd say I had my penis removed. So
and he tried to pick up on women.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the dude, the black cat who did the
Clifford,
poetry.
Wasn't it Clifford Oliver?
Clifford. This was no grass shack. This was no bivouac.
Yeah.
Charlie was cold and hard, and I
don't remember his speech. I don't remember his poem, but he did it for a while, right?
Yeah.
He did for like the first.
He came
years.
up and did poetry about Charlie in Vietnam.
I don't know that he wasn't. I mean, he wasn't a bad guy, right? But Pickle was.
Clifford wasn't a bad guy.
Yeah.
No, he didn't come up with any BS. Gary would be in a Navy SEAL, and then who was the older cat that?
There was another guy who claimed to be a Medal of Honor winner that was a big fraud. He ended up committing suicide. I don't remember his name offhand though.
So there was Larry and John Pagel. And then a cat that you got real close
Larry
to.
Cummings, John Pagel, and Bill Miller.
Yeah, Bill Miller.
Bill Miller.
And then they kind of got together, grouped on these guys and like, hey, you better get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
They were very, very big on that, man. It makes me emotional. Those guys are very big on getting together, finding out the true background, and just getting on guys who were there. And like, they were like, we'll kill you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've been in the bush. We've killed people.
Yeah.
And if you come in here talking about, who you claim to be, and they would find out, yeah, man, those guys cleaned out their own.
Yeah,
they took care of their own.
Because we were young and naive and didn't know any better, and we'd hear a good story and we'd get emotional and think, we wouldn't think that somebody would be so cynical as to use us to make themselves appear bigger in their own eyes. So
Bob would give Casey the box office money in case he just go fucking get drunk.
Yeah. I don't think he lasted, did he?
I don't know.
I thought Agent Orange took him. He had cancer, he said, from Agent Orange.
They could have.
But I mean, the golden years of Playhouse.
It was the golden years of my learning.
Yeah.
I found my group.
Well.
As much as I didn't agree with the administration, I found my group.
Yeah.
And then we rehearsed and we cared about it, and we did plays and we did scenes, and we're at it every day.
Yeah, and you know what? Bob's politics irritated a lot of people, but I actually found that it knocked me out of my old groove. It made me think. It made me question all of my old premises. And had it not been for him, I don't think I would have discovered objectivism. I don't think I would have discovered the way that I look at life now. So, acting, aside from learning a technique to help you focus and concentrate under the pressures of a set, it's in the end a spiritual journey, right? Where you're doing a lot of interior work for the parts that you're doing, one hopes, especially if you're doing plays. And that interior work leads you in a lot of different directions. And a lot of times that interior work makes you change your own life premises and puts you on a completely different course. And Bob standing up for values that were the antithesis of most of the class at the time, I thought was a really powerful thing for kids to be jarred like that out of their old way of thinking. I thought it was great. I wish he would do more of that. I wish he would do that today, but I don't think he's got the energy.
I have friends to this day that left the school because of his politics, and I told them they were foolish because I didn't agree with a lot of things he said, but I stuck around for my group. And we had several theaters to do plays in. We had the opportunity. Yeah. If you buckled down, and that's the thing about Bob, when he saw what I was doing, one time he told me in the beginning to quit rehearsing so much and make it more meaningful. I had a full-time job, a baby, and I was married, and I was rehearsing 10 times a week with different activities. 90% of the time. Sometimes I'd, when students now bring the same activity, 2 classes in a row, I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, it's my activity. I go, no, I finally got them, and I just opened up, well, I guess it's been about a year, but I've got a good group now. But I finally got them. It's mandatory to watch a movie in between class.
Oh, good.
It's mandatory.
Good.
And then they discussed the movie.
Oh, good.
But I got to tell you, Midnight Express was one of our great discussions. It went on for about half an hour. But we discussed the movie, and I make sure, I say, take notes, put this down for your doors, for your activities. You watch this. What did it touch in you? What didn't you like the politics? And now I have them. It's mandatory. They go to a yard sale, an antique store, or a hobby shop.
There you go.
They have to.
Good.
In between class. They have to show me what they bought. But they're good. They're good students, and they're working hard. But it's the type of thing that we have to enforce. You
do, and Bob was really intense about that before, and it wasn't so much that he didn't enforce it in that way. I think that's great, but you definitely knew, from his feedback that you needed to get your ass on your game and work at it. I don't know that the kids today have that same motivation. I saw a kid doing an activity, was cutting out coupons. Seriously? I mean, I think it comes from a misunderstanding of what the activity is. I think they just think it's something to do to take up time until the other person comes there, as opposed to it serves a mechanical function for you. The harder the thing is, the harder the problem you have to solve, the more engaged you are with it. The more engaged you are with it, the less self-conscious you are, the more of an experience you'll have.
Right.
The harder it is, the more of an experience you'll have. You're working on the fundamentals of acting. If you can't get the activity, you can't get acting.
Right.
So blows my mind. So this kid now comes over to my house, and I teach him, a couple of times a week. And we work on activities indoors. We do speeches, we do scenes together. I help him with it. I help him do interpretation. I give him exercises and play along with him. But he would bring a partner who would come by, and her activities were universally awful.
Right.
Like it's as if she never really thought about it every time. And I would sit and discuss the activity with her, how to make it better, how to make it harder, how to make it more meaningful, how to be more invested in it. And each time she would bring back an iteration, she'd bring back a different activity, but zero difficulty, really no time specifications. The meaning, it could be done, it could be not done, didn't matter. None of the parameters that compel you to have a real experience on stage. And every time I would talk to her about the particulars, I would make her activity better, harder, more interesting, and then say, now emulate that and bring in something next week with those standards in mind. Every time she'd fall back on the same thing. And that's just laziness. That's just, in the end, laziness.
I have to say it, and I'm amazed that people don't know the answer when I say, do you know the 4 parts of an independent activity? And I don't remember hearing the 4 parts when I was in class. That's why I bring it up, that it's an object with a degree of difficulty, with a deep meaning, and a time limit. You start off with the object, as we know, difficult. Then we add things to it. I say there are 4 parts. If you don't have 4 parts, you're missing something, which is a silly statement. But
it's got to be hard. It's got to be meaningful. It's got to be urgent. And that meant urgent, so they don't even understand what that means. But urgent means you barely have enough time to get it done without interruptions.
Right.
Barely. You could just sneak in and get it done. Jeff used to say something like this, which I think is a great descriptor of an activity. If God could grant me one wish right now, it would be to get this thing done. That's sort of a good way of measuring whether or not your activity is meaningful or not, right? If please grant me this now, and I don't see that in any of the activities anymore.
Right. So I want to ask you about some directors. I want to ask you also about...
I have time, just so you know, about maybe 20 minutes more. Is that cool?
This is my activity.
Yes. Now you're on activity mode.
Working with Jeff Daniels, one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
I idolize his work because he's simple, relaxed, honest. I remember I did a scene with him where I was behind the camera, and I have this long speech. I'm sort of scaring him. I'm intimidating him. I'm playing a game with him, letting him know that I have the goods on him, that I can use it anytime.
Is this when you have the bag that you found at in the shed?
Yeah, and when I was doing it from the other side, I was watching his reactions. He's very still, and in between takes, I would just say that was awesome. He's like, all I'm doing is listening, and it was great to hear that. But he's always there. He's always simple. His acting is super smart, and I know that's sort of a weird thing to say to actors, but smart actors are really good actors too. It's not. Oftentimes, I think actors learn to be enemies of their minds, because they're told not to think all the time. And so they take the particular that we're saying as a teacher as a general principle. Right? That's their relationship to us. So I'm very, very circumspect about saying things like, don't think.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to make the actor an enemy of his mind, because in the end, he needs that mind to conceptually deal with the work, to conceptually deal with the words. He has to be smart about the logic of the scene.
Right.
And unfortunately, if you tell an actor that the mind is the enemy of their creative process, they're not going to be smart when they act anymore.
Right. So you're inherently goofy.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but...
No, I am.
So, but you play so many mean and serious characters. So I remember the early days of Mark Pellegrino being goofy, and there's a skeeter on your Peter, knock it off.
Yeah.
Lone Star.
There's a skater on my Peter, knock it off. So that is something that that's actually from my stepdad, one of the worst people on the planet. So that was actually a memory that bubbled up, I think. And I just sort of spontaneously did it. There's a skater on my Peter, knock it off.
What the hell? God dang it. I always take notes and don't. You said something that was really great. You said, she's the one that taught me how to do it. What the fuck were you saying? God dang it.
She's the one that taught me how to do it.
Ah, man. I
Like, do it?
No, maybe. I don't know what it was. Maybe someone you said something about your mother or something to somebody. Anyway, it was in American Rust, but I also got a kick out of it when you brought the beer for Jeff Daniels. He didn't give you what you wanted, so you can buy your own beer. You laughed, even though he didn't ask you to bring the beer.
Yeah.
But when you're doing the dance and you're doing the dance with the robe in between your legs, and it's funny because I know you have that side, but a lot you're not asked to do that. So
Right.
I was really, because you can be a charming fucking dude. And I was really glad to see that in the series. You know what I mean?
I think they hit that a lot more in season 2. The wardrobe person has a very different vision, which is more in line with my vision of the character. The wardrobe person in season 1 had less of our idea, so you're going to see a lot more peacocking. You're going to see a lot more Virgil in the vein that I wanted Virgil to be. So he's going to be, I think, more funny and more interesting, more goofy. But also there's some surprises in there too. So.
Yeah, it was just fun. So you already talked about working with William Friedkin. What the fuck's his name? The director of The Wanderers. You worked with him. Was that on the Ashley Judd movie?
Philip Kaufman.
Philip Kaufman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did Twisted, and he did Hemingway and Gellhorn. He was awesome.
Did
yeah,
both.
and he did The Right Stuff, and and the Body Snatchers. This 79 version with Jeff Goldblum.
Right.
Everything he shoots is in San Francisco. It's awesome. He's a San Francisco native. Really smart, fun guy. I remember he walked up to me in between takes, one take, and he just walks up and he's like, "I know you're going to make this one really good." And he had that sort of Zen vibe whenever he talked. Yeah, he was just a really cool dude, man. I liked working with him.
Well, The Wanderers is one of my all-time favorite films, and the fact they used all New York stage actors, and at the time, so it came out in 79, so they probably made it 78. So at the time, still those guys didn't want to come out to Hollywood. They were almost like the group theater guys. Like, we do theater, we're real actors.
Yeah.
They were good. A lot of guys didn't know their names. They were good. Who else? Give me some other great directors.
I mean, I worked with David Mamet.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I was nervous too because I thought.
Did you see Oleana, the movie?
No.
Okay.
No, but this was Spartan, which was apparently good. I haven't seen Spartan, but the script was interesting. Val Kilmer was very interesting and creative and cool. It turned out to be a pretty nice guy. I thought I would have issues with him. And I thought I would have issues with David because, I had like 2 big long speeches and I was very nervous about getting them word for word because it's David fucking Mamet.
Right.
But he turned out to be the only director that ever gave me actable action, which I thought was great. He just says, try to escape. These guys are trying to escape. I said, cool. So I loved that. I took that action and put it into 2 pages of dialogue, trying to get the fuck out of there, trying to kiss Val Kilmer's ass so I could escape. All of that animated all the words that I said. Of course, then Val Kilmer shoots me in the chest and kills me and shoots the other guy. So we didn't last long, but it was fun. And I got to know him, and I think that got me the couple episodes on The Unit, which he was the executive producer on. I remember sort of making a dumb error. I think I went in for one of the regulars on The Unit, and I'm like, so what do you think of this? He's like, oh, I don't give a shit about that. I asked him a character question, which I knew from the outset, after having read everything that he's ever written, like, this will be a bad thing to do, but I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm going to do it because I have a question. And he's just like, I don't give a shit about that. And, so it was great working with him. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, by the way. So,
who?
David Mamet.
Well, I won't try to grab him then.
No. I wouldn't. I'm only a white belt. I'm just a poor white belt, but I'm addicted to the.
You ever see Eric Edwards putting any of his video?
He's got a stripe.
Yeah, he's fucking going out. He's serious about it.
He inspired me. You know why? He inspired me because I have a very strange history with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When I was teaching Taekwondo, Timmy Toulé would come over to my Taekwondo studio afterwards and we'd wrestle. And I'm like, I got to learn, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I hurt myself with Royce and Hori and Gracie, who are like the guys who brought Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to LA. Yeah. This was in 91, somewhere abouts. So I hurt my back so bad, it dropped me out of everything. And then I picked up Jiu-Jitsu again like eight years ago and hurt my back again. And I've always dreamed of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I remembered Eric was in it, but in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I didn't remember how far he'd gotten until I saw him post that he got his black belt. And I'm like, this dude has had 2 hip replacements, back surgery, I think something with his knees. I'm like, if he can fucking do it, what the fuck is wrong with me? He actually inspired me. I'm like, he's doing it. He's sticking to it. Even though he's getting body parts replaced, I got to have at least half of that gumption because I've always wanted to get at least the purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's just such an amazing art. And so after I got my heart fixed and got back to being reconditioned again, I was in Pittsburgh. I'd go by this MMA place all the time. I'm like, one day I want to study there. I walked in, I said, do you guys do old man jiu-jitsu? And they're like, we got just the guy for you. They hooked me up with who now is my friend, Jared Evans, total light side of the force guy. Started rolling with him for about a month, came back, went to Jean-Jacques Machado's and watched their classes. And I watched the way color belts integrated with white belts and how they taught. And it was perfect. It's like, this is where I need to go. Because most jiu-jitsu schools, you're training with white belts. Everybody's using way too much strength. White belts are spazzes, they're spazzy. And you don't want that because they have no control. What are you?
His email is geekspaz_nerd.
Geekspaz_nerd. And so you're working with blue belts and purple belts and color belts who know how to roll. It's just an entirely different universe. And so I've started myself on the program Old Man Jiu-Jitsu, so I'm not using strength and, torque and all the stuff that, young guys rely on, because I'm going to use this as an old man. I want to be able to rely on my frames. I want to be able to rely on leverage and timing and take on somebody bigger and stronger than me. And so I'm coming at it from that perspective now and have been obsessed for the last 3 months. I go 4 times a week if I can and do privates. But that's because of Eric Edwards inspiring me.
Cool. Now, do you talk to Scotty Khan at all?
Yeah, he's a black belt.
Oh, yeah. He's got a gym at his house.
I know.
Eric goes up there sometimes.
Okay, so Eric goes... Oh, so Eric's one of the black belts that goes up there and trains with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I've been thinking about going up there.
Yeah.
Scotty's invited me, so
okay.
Maybe when I get a stripe. Yeah. At least a stripe on my belt.
You don't want him throwing you around too bad?
He won't throw me around, but yeah, I'd prefer to hold off the choke or the triangle, the arm bar as long as I can.
Okay, so 2 things, and then you can always come back.
Yes,
so,
I'd love to. I just have old dogs at home, and I was going to bring them.
You still got
actually.
your dog you used to carry to class and stuff?
Yes, Frankie. He turned 17 October 11th.
God.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I was going to bring him, and I was like, nah, maybe.
We've had dogs as guests. I've got water bowls.
Oh, great. Then I would have bring them both.
Okay, so Capote.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So you have the ability to change your face in some characters. Watching your character in Capote, you just look dumb at times. I'm serious. You're playing a guy that doesn't have too much to say. When you're getting the photos taken, it's not a put down. It's not a joke. You look different.
Truman Capote, when he wrote about Dick Hickok, he said he looked like an apple that had been halved and put back together unevenly.
Okay.
Because when he was 16, he'd been in an accident that caused, what I think people today would consider a type of brain damage that started a sociopathy. Antisocial behavior started in after this terrible car accident that he was in. I don't think Dick Hickok would have gotten the death penalty today. I don't think he committed the murders. I think his friend did, which is the way I think it goes down in the movie. And his character also, I read the book 6 times for the movie, by the way, In Cold Blood. If you haven't read that book, it's amazing.
I've read it, yeah.
So I read it 6 times for the movie, and I would listen to audio tapes of Dick Hickok being interviewed by policemen. And I'd watch some footage of him that Bennett Miller was able to supply so I could see how he walked and stuff. And I tried to apply that, knowing that you're applying it, just let it sit in there and happen or not happen when you're working. I actually had a lot of he was this cagey character for sure, but they invested a lot of the things that he did in the other character for dramatic purposes. But it was Dick Hickok who was really working for the appeals. It was Dick Hickok who was really trying to get out of there and really was forthright with everybody. Didn't play any games. And it was Dick Hickok who, when he was being taken to the scaffold, shook Truman Capote's hand and shook all of the guards' hands and said, "Thank you very much. Thank you. Goodbye." He walked up stoically like a man. Took him 30 minutes to die on that scaffold. But it was the other guy, Perry, who freaked. You don't see me walking up the scaffold, I think, but you see Perry doing what Dick Hickok did, which, was I don't know that I would have the gonads to do that. We shot that in Winnipeg in late November. It's a very cold place, but in this warehouse, they had built a whole life-size scaffolding that was really intimidating because you know that's what it looked like, and you know that on the day that's what it was like. And I learned a great lesson I learned a million lessons from Catherine Keener and Chris Cooper, and especially Philip Seymour Hoffman. Two things I'll just say. When Philip Seymour Hoffman comes into the death chamber with us, Bennett Miller wanted him to cry, and Philip Seymour Hoffman was like, "I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry." And of course, in the scene, he cries. And I thought, I see why you're doing that, you slick bastard, you. He was doing it so that he gave himself permission not to do anything. He was giving himself permission. And when you give yourself permission to do anything, oftentimes that thing you do want will come out, that you want in the back of your head. And it came out because he gave himself permission to say no, to be whatever he was. And another thing I learned, it was Bennett Miller's first movie. And I think he was a documentary filmmaker before that. This is his first narrative film that he was doing. And I remember him starting off saying action in the first week or so. But after 2 weeks, he wasn't saying action anymore. The DP would say set when he was ready, and you took your own cue and started from wherever you wanted to in the scene, which I thought was great. I also learned from Jeff Bridges in The Big Lebowski. He never started a scene at the action point, always took it back a few beats and ramped into it, which I thought was great. Yeah. And I learned from Jeff, you could also watch playback and not get self-conscious, and watch playback and see what's reading and what isn't reading, and then go back and make those adjustments in your own work. So when I can, usually when I'm a regular on a TV show, I can do this. I can say, can I see playback? And I'll always watch playback to see if it works or not.
Yeah, that's good, because a lot of times I trust and I go, wow, that doesn't look good.
Yeah, you trust their eye. I mean, a lot of times in TV, they're just going to take it because the frame is filled and nobody spilled anything or fucked up a line. So I always make sure I like what I see. If I can, I like what I see, and then I ask for another if I don't like it.
Now, are you bummed out you turned down The Rock?
No, because I got to fight Mel Gibson. So is it a step up or down to go to Nick Cage? Because that's what I was going to do.
But it's like 14 weeks of work.
Yeah. I mean, I only had one scene in it, so if they would have hired me for the whole show just for that.
Oh, I thought you were one of the main guys.
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No.
Well, see, there we go. I've been thinking about it for 50 years, and now that's it.
Well, no, they hired me for the part, and they wanted. I think they wanted to see me read or something, and my managers were like, "He's already done a fight scene with Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon 3. Just if you want to give him the part, give him the part."
I remember that, your manager with the cool black 65 Mustang convertible.
He did?
Yeah.
Was that who was that back then?
I forget. Lived right there in Toluca Lake, really close to.
Oh, that was John Meckrit. Yeah, you're right. I love John. I feel really badly.
He's
about
not
that.
a manager anymore.
What was he doing?
I don't know, but I walk in that neighborhood. I live in Toluca Lake, so I walk, and it's been several years since I ran into him, and he was, I don't know, he's doing something, but he's still got a nice house over in Toluca Lake.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, always nice to me.
I feel like I broke up with him on bad terms. So, like I got another manager and then broke up with him. It's like getting a girlfriend, while you're still with your girlfriend, and then breaking up with her and going with, that's really bad taste. And
I'm
did
glad
that
I
with
could
him.
bring it up on film.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, I met him at the Big Lebowski premiere because he was managing Flea. Flea was in Big Lebowski. And I said, "I'm so sorry, John." I actually apologized to him at that moment, 20 some odd years ago. So Yeah, then I did break up with that manager after him, and I made a point of breaking up first,
Right.
sitting for a while without a manager, going through the anxiety of being alone, and then picking a manager after that.
What about Susan Smith?
I love Susan Smith.
I know. I thought she was a great agent, boutique.
Yeah.
Really got a lot of good actors.
Yeah.
I never met her. I just remember her reputation was being really good.
She was good. She was tough. I remember I went in there and I decided that I was going to get her as an agent. She didn't know that. It's like a puppy decides to have you as their. I decided that when I walked in. And so I had this long meeting with her, and she's like, you're very talented. And you remind me of, Gary Busey. And I don't know if that was a good thing, but you remind me of a young Gary Busey. And I feel like I have somebody like you already. And I said, no, you don't have anybody like me. I said, you might have, some 6'3" tall blonde guys around, but you don't have me. And you should. And she took me. And yeah, sometimes I do weird, bold shit like that. Like I remember the audition before the Murder of Crows audition was an audition for a Charlie Sheen movie called Navy SEAL, right? And,
yeah.
No, it wasn't Navy SEAL. Sorry, that's another one. It was a Charlie Sheen movie. It was like a cop movie. And I decided not to do any of the dialogue in the scene. I decided I was going to take a speech from cops. And I took the one about the guy who tried to solve the rape. It was a rape of a girl who looked like Susan Anton. And he tells the whole story.
Right.
It's a 7-page. It's like a 7-minute monologue. It's like already you're breaking rules. You're not supposed to do anything. First of all, you should do the material. You shouldn't do a monologue over a minute long. All the things they tell you not to do, I did. So I came in there with it. I didn't even look at the sides. I didn't like them. I didn't think they would show what I could do. So the casting director comes out. And she's like, are you ready to come in? I'm like, yes. Could you do me a favor and tell them I've prepared something other than the scene? She's like this. And she's like, okay. And she walks in. She disappears for a while, comes back out. Come on in. I come in. There's a room full of producers. There's Gino Havens, who is the casting director for Murder of Crows, and a bunch of young people. And they're like, what did you think of the scene? I'm like, yeah, it was okay. And they're like, okay, well, the character's changing. He's not an undercover cop anymore. He's just going to be a bad guy. I'm like, it's a little less interesting, but okay. I'm not going to do that, though. I have something else prepared. Because I could tell they didn't know this. And they're like, okay. I'm like, just roll. And they rolled. And thank God I was in the zone, because I did this speech and it was everywhere. Like all fucking, it was up and down and crazy and wonderful. And I connected with everything that I was saying. Afterwards, he's like, holy fuck. He's like, I was mesmerized the whole time. Now, I didn't get the part. Who knows why? But the next week I went in for Gino Havens to read for A Murder of Crows. And Gino said, that's the best audition I've seen in 23 years of working in the business.
The first one or the Murder of Crows?
The first one.
Right.
Yeah. And I said, oh, thanks. Because I wasn't sure how it went over, because I didn't get the part. But, I think the lesson I learned from that, which I keep having to relearn, was just taking control of the moment. As Quentin Tarantino says, they don't know what they want. You have to show them what they want.
I've heard Quentin Tarantino recently say that, I forget who told him, someone big in the business says never give an adjustment before they do their thing, because you might see something.
Yeah.
They might bring something to it. It's the first time you're going to see an organic reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said he always...
Oh, good.
He did
I
that
read for Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
For Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, yeah?
He took my part. He was Mr. Brown. I was going up for Mr. Brown.
Okay, so...
I'd love to keep going. I should have brought my dogs.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You'll be back. You're just down the road.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love this place.
Fantastic.
Anything you want to promote, social media?
You can follow me on Mark R. Pellegrino. That's my ex, formerly known as Twitter. Mark Ross Pelly. Check mark there for Instagram. I also have a show that's pinned on my Twitter page called Reality Check. So check that out. I do these little philosophy, political shorts. If you're interested in that kind of thing, check it out. And that's it. Come give me a shout out on social media. We'll argue. We'll fight. It'll be fun. Peace.